There are people in this world who were never meant to blend in. They move through life differently, guided by something timeless and ancient knowing etched deep into their spirit. When they enter a room, the atmosphere shifts. Not because they speak loudly, but because their presence carries weight. They're marked by the divine, and deeply feared by darkness. These individuals are the chosen. They've been ridiculed, misunderstood, cast aside, and attacked without reason. Yet, every time they fall, they rise again stronger, quieter, and even more unstoppable than before. There's a truth most people fail to recognize. Targeting a chosen one isn't just a mistake, it's a spiritual offense. And the universe doesn't turn a blind eye to that. There's a sacred order to existence, a divine structure that governs the unseen. When someone violates that order, when they cross a line they were never meant to approach, it triggers a shift, something sacred awakens, and that individual embarks on a journey they're unprepared for. In this video, we'll explore 9 intense and irreversible consequences that fall upon anyone who attempts to harm someone covered by divine protection. These aren't just ideas, they're spiritual laws in motion. This is your warning, your insight, your confirmation. Don't look away. Don't miss a moment, because what you're about to hear could change your perspective forever. And if your spirit already resonates with what's coming, hit that like button now. Subscribe if you haven't already, and comment 99 below. Why 99? Because in the realm of divine order, 99 symbolizes approaching justice. It means what was hidden is about to be revealed, and what was taken is returning multiplied. Ready. Let's dive deeper. The first truth is this: the shift happens instantly. The very moment someone chooses to harm a chosen one, everything around them begins to change, not in days, not in weeks, immediately. It's like flipping an invisible switch in the universe. Suddenly, blessings that once came easily begin to dry up. What once flowed without resistance starts to slip through their fingers. Plans collapse unexpectedly. Doors that were wide open are now sealed shut. People who once stood by them begin to drift away, cold, distant, or gone altogether. Nothing feels grounded anymore, because what they've done isn't just personal, it's spiritual disruption. A chosen one exists within a sacred alignment, an invisible design upheld by divine forces. Disturbing that design throws everything off balance. At first, the one who caused harm doesn't understand why things are falling apart. They ask themselves, why is everything going wrong? But what they don't realize is that they've triggered a system of immediate spiritual response. This isn't karma slowly circling back. This is divine correction unfolding in real time. It's not revenge. It's not about punishment. It's protection activated and moving. Because a chosen one never walks alone. They are accompanied by ancestors, by angels, by the breath of divine purpose itself. So when someone targets them with malice, jealousy, or betrayal, they aren't just hurting a person, they're violating sacred space. And the universe rushes in to restore what was disrupted. And here's the most astonishing part. The chosen one doesn't need to say a single word. They don't need to fight back. They don't seek payback. The moment they were wronged, the spiritual shift had already begun. And by the time the person who caused the harm starts to realize something is off, it's already too late. But what happens after that initial disruption, what follows next, is even more unsettling. Keep watching. The second consequence is this: truth erupts into the light. You can deceive the world. You can even lie to yourself. But if you lie to a chosen one, you are lying in the presence of divine truth. Because chosen ones don't need to speak in order to expose deception. Their very energy, their mere existence, carries a frequency so aligned with truth that it naturally dismantles illusion. They don't chase conflict. They don't hunt for drama. But their presence alone shines a light that falsehood cannot withstand. Their vibration reveals what others try to hide. And when lies are spoken in their direction, those lies cannot last. They unravel, exposed, stripped, revealed not by force, but by the natural power of truth carried in the energy of the chosen. They don't search for secrets. Simply by being, they create an environment where truth naturally rises to the surface. It begins quietly. The manipulator starts making mistakes, their facade slips, inconsistencies become visible. People begin to question what they once believed without hesitation. Unexplained events stack up, and suddenly, the web of deception begins to unravel, not through confrontation, but through divine design. When betrayal or dishonesty targets a chosen soul, the universe steps in as investigator, witness, and judge. And when it delivers its verdict, it's undeniable, public, and deeply disruptive. The one who believed they had control, who thought their lies were safely hidden, finds themselves exposed, often in front of the very people they sought to manipulate. Bonds fall apart. Reputations crumble. Trust dissolves completely, not because the chosen sought revenge, but because truth can't remain hidden in their presence. That's why those who live behind masks feel uneasy around them. Something in their spirit stirs. They instinctively know, this person sees through me, even if nothing is said aloud. Asterisk, and this is the twist most never anticipate. The chosen rarely confront. They don't need to. Their energy does the work silently, precisely, and at the perfect moment. But what happens when the one exposed still refuses to change? That's when the true descent begins. The darkness they embraced starts to consume them, faster than they ever expected. Stay with me, because what comes next is even more unsettling. 3. The energy reversal begins. There's a hidden danger that often goes unnoticed. It starts innocently enough in V, dressed as admiration, curiosity disguised as friendship, but slowly, it transforms into a hunger, a craving to be near the chosen one, not to grow, but to take. The light carried by the chosen is magnetic. It heals, comforts, and awakens. But to those with shadowed intentions, it also becomes tempting. They think, if I get close enough, maybe I can soak up their power. Maybe I can use their light to fill what I'm missing inside. And so, they latch on. They perform. They pretend. All the while, they drain. But here's the truth they miss. Divine energy isn't something that can be consumed. It's meant to connect, not to be stolen, manipulated, or misused. And when someone tries to siphon it without alignment, without genuine purpose, the energy pushes back. The current reverses. Suddenly, it's the one feeding off the light who starts to weaken. Their clarity fades. Confusion sets in. Emotionally, spiritually, and sometimes physically, they begin to deteriorate. Why? Because the frequency of a chosen one doesn't empower deceit, it burns through it. It doesn't fuel darkness, it exposes and disrupts it. And eventually, it breaks it apart. What they thought would fill their emptiness ends up draining them. What they tried to control slips through their fingers. The brilliance they tried to replicate begins to haunt them in silence. It isn't a punishment, it's a reflection. A sacred truth about energy. You cannot align with what you try to manipulate. You can't hold on to what you secretly resent. And so, they begin to vanish. Not because the chosen one wished them harm, but because divine energy will never allow itself to be weaponized. And yet, some still refuse to learn. They dig deeper, cling harder, and push further until they crash into the next spiritual law, where karma doesn't knock gently, it storms in. 4. Karma comes with force. There is a force more ancient than time itself, a spiritual law embedded in the fabric of reality. It doesn't wait for permission. It doesn't require a witness. It simply waits until equilibrium is disturbed. And when someone interferes with the life path of a chosen one, that law awakens. Its name is karma, but not the watered-down version that people joke about, not the casual what goes around, comes around. This karma is exact, intentional, relentless, because a chosen one doesn't walk aimlessly. They walk in step with divine purpose, carried by grace and perfect timing. Anyone who injects chaos into that path doesn't just cause trouble, they create a cosmic reaction. At first, it feels like nothing more than bad luck. A deal unexpectedly falls apart. A once solid relationship begins to crumble. An alarming diagnosis appears out of nowhere. What was peaceful now feels tense. What once brought rest turns into restlessness. But none of this is random, it's a divine correction, a spiritual recalibration. When someone interferes with a chosen one's purpose, they're not just opposing a person, they're pushing against a force far greater, the will of the Most High. And in response, the universe begins to deconstruct the illusions they built. It's not done to destroy them, but to wake them up from their deception. What makes it even more chilling is that karma knows exactly where to strike. It doesn't just cause pain, it aims for transformation. It targets the areas they believed were secure, their pride, their image, their closest relationships, their inner calm. And the longer they resist the lesson, the deeper the disruption becomes, because the path of a chosen one is sacred, intentionally protected. And those who try to sabotage it inevitably find themselves caught in a storm they unknowingly summoned. The most dangerous part is that some people don't even realize what they've activated. They continue to provoke, unaware, they've crossed into dangerous spiritual territory. And in doing so, they walk directly into one of the most haunting consequences of all: guilt and regret. Not every form of judgment comes as external ruin. Sometimes, the harshest punishment is internal, a slow unraveling of the spirit. These individuals may think they've won. They walk away smiling, boasting, convinced they got the upper hand. But the universe doesn't settle the score with noise. Sometimes, it works quietly. A whisper that refuses to fade, a weight that grows heavier with time, a voice inside that no amount of praise or distraction can silence, that often starts small: restless nights, moments of inexplicable sadness or anxiety, a sudden emptiness in the middle of celebration. Because even if they appear victorious to the outside world, deep down, they know the truth. They didn't just harm a person, they wounded a soul, chosen and covered by divine purpose. And the spirit remembers. They try to drown the guilt with noise, indulgence, distractions, buying more, partying harder, seeking constant validation. But nothing sticks. Joy turns to ash in their mouth. The things they once found fulfilling now feel meaningless. That's the effect of violating something sacred. It leaves a mark that no trophy can hide. They feel it when the world goes quiet. They feel it when they're alone. They feel it when they realize that they didn't just lose someone, they pushed themselves out of alignment with their own spirit. They may still smile in the mirror, but behind the eyes, there's a growing fracture and the cruel twist. That regret doesn't fade, it grows. Because it's not just a bad memory, it's an open wound that bleeds in silence. They may have won a moment, but they lost something eternal, a divine connection they'll never touch again, a light they'll never reclaim, a sense of peace that won't return. And that's when the realization hits. The very person they tried to break was sent to restore them, but by then, the chosen one is long gone, lifted, protected, unreachable. And the next consequence waiting in line doesn't just break the solid blocks. The road ahead. Then comes the sixth consequence, rejecting their own blessing. It's one of life's saddest truths. People often destroy what was meant to save them. What most fail to recognize is that the chosen one wasn't placed in their life randomly. They were sent with purpose on assignment from the divine. Not to harm, compete, or overshadow, but to bless. To bring light into places that were dark. To offer love where there was emptiness. To open doors that others couldn't even see. But instead of recognizing the gift, they resented the glow. They judged. They competed. They betrayed. And in doing so, they slammed shut the very door heaven had opened for them. That's the great irony. The blessing they rejected wasn't just for the chosen, it was meant for them too. But their refusal to embrace it cost them something far more valuable than they ever realized. They weren't just lashing out at a person. They were rejecting their own elevation. The very support they once prayed for, the healing they desperately needed, and the breakthrough they longed to receive, all of it was wrapped in the presence of the chosen one. And now, it's gone. The warmth that used to radiate so effortlessly from that connection has faded into a distant memory. Where once, there was divine alignment, now there's only a subtle emptiness they can't quite explain. They try to fill the void, meeting new people, chasing fresh experiences, looking for the next high, but nothing hits quite the same. That's because the blessing wasn't random, it was intentional, custom designed, carried through the presence of the chosen. And once that sacred connection is broken, it doesn't come back easily. They may attempt to recreate the magic, to reignite what once brought them life, but the energy has changed. The glow is gone, because that relationship wasn't just emotional, it was spiritual. And when a spiritual bond is violated, the loss runs deeper than just losing a person. It severs the pathway forward. Now they wander through life with a lingering sense of almost joyful, almost whole, almost free, but never fully there. What lies ahead isn't just emotional emptiness. It's a full spiritual standstill. Because when you reject what was divinely sent to elevate you, you don't just delay your progress, you bring your future to a halt. And in the next phase, that halt becomes real, tangible, and impossible to ignore. 7. Their life enters a spiritual freeze. Something begins to shift, not in loud, obvious ways, but subtly, deeply, undeniably. Life stops flowing. Opportunities dry up. Relationships fade or grow stale. Even spiritual practices that once brought peace begin to feel lifeless. Prayers feel like they vanish into the void. It's not bad luck, and it's not coincidence. It's a divine suspension. Because when someone blocks or interferes with the purpose of a chosen one, the universe doesn't lash out, it withdraws. Movement ceases. The wind that once carried them forward suddenly disappears. There's no more divine momentum, no more favor. It's as if time itself pauses around them, waiting for acknowledgement, for repentance, for a true return to alignment. Until that happens, everything feels stuck. Every effort is heavy. Every door remains locked. They attempt to force outcomes, but nothing gives. They try to manifest, but nothing materializes. They try to run, but there's nowhere left to go. Because the freeze isn't just around them, it's within them. Their spirit has stalled. Their soul is calling out for realignment. It's a sacred whisper, saying something important has been broken, and nothing else will move until it's made right. This isn't karma in the way the world sees it, nor is it revenge. This is spiritual law in motion. When you interfere with someone walking under divine instruction, you don't just challenge a human, you interrupt a divine plan. And when that happens, heaven doesn't respond with fire. It simply takes back the wind. Without that wind, you can't sail, you drift. You spin in circles. You stall. And the more they resist this truth, the deeper the freeze becomes. But what happens when that stillness turns into something worse, a spiritual debt? A weight no prayer can lift, one that demands not time, but payment. 8. The universe sends the bill. The universe remembers not just actions, but motives. It holds record of the whispered intentions, the hidden agendas, the thoughts formed in darkness. When someone betrays, slanders, or undermines a person walking in divine purpose, they activate an ancient mechanism, a spiritual ledger, quietly marking every offense, stamped, filed, awaiting the perfect time. Because nothing escapes divine order. People often assume they've avoided justice when nothing seems to happen right away. No thunder, no fallout, just silence. But the silence isn't approval, it's patience. The universe never reacts hastily. It waits, strategically, for the moment when the lesson will be felt the deepest. And when that moment arrives, it doesn't announce itself gently. It storms through. The same energy they projected onto the chosen returns to them amplified, sharpened, intensified. Every lie they spread now echoes back as shame. Every door they tried to close comes back on them with force. Every ounce of chaos they stirred becomes the storm they must now face. What they dished out in shadow finds its way back to them in broad daylight, heavier than before. Now, consequences surround them camped out at their doorstep. And what makes it worse is they can't pinpoint the source. There's no obvious explanation, no visible cause, just an overwhelming sense that everything is unraveling. Deep down, they know. Meanwhile, the one they tried to bury, the chosen one, is rising, silently, gracefully, untouchably, because divine justice doesn't shout. It doesn't lash out in anger. It restores balance with precision. And once that restoration begins, those who caused harm don't simply suffer. They experience deeply personal, unforgettable transformation. Not because the chosen seeks revenge, but because their own actions become the mirror. They're being taught by the very darkness they once released. But there is one final consequence. One so profound, it leaves no room for denial. It shakes the spirit, rewires the mind, and stirs the soul. And once it arrives, there's no way back. 9. They realize who they were dealing with too late. At first, they dismissed you, laughed at your silence, looked past your presence. They thought you were ordinary, easy to replace, easy to forget. But in time, the truth becomes undeniable. The very light they once ignored now blinds them. The power they tried to control now moves beyond their reach. The divine mission they once mocked begins to unfold boldly, beautifully, without them, and when it hits, it doesn't come like a slap. It strikes like revelation, splitting their understanding wide open. Realize it wasn't just you they fought. They interfered with something sacred, something chosen, something protected by divine design. And the hardest part, they recognize all of this too late. Because while they focused on tearing you down, heaven was building you up. While they whispered lies behind closed doors, the Creator was writing your story in light. And now, you don't just rise, you ascend, above the conflict, above the noise, far above them. What haunts them the most is the opportunity they lost. They could have stood beside you. They could have been part of your journey. They could have experienced the overflow of your blessings. But instead, they chose pride. They chose ego. They waged war against someone who never came to fight. And now, they sit in silence, not just watching your rise, but feeling the weight of their own loss. Not the loss of a friendship or a relationship, but the loss of access to something holy. Something they'll never touch again. Now, they finally see who you are. They finally understand what you carry. And they realize that in trying to dim your light, they only expose the depth of their own shadows. But it's too late. The damage can't be undone. The past can't be rewritten. The truth can't be unseen. All they can do now is watch from a distance as you rise, untouched, unbothered, unshakable, chosen. And just when they think the story is finished, just when they begin to settle and to regret, you speak, you release your truth, and the atmosphere shifts again. That moment is coming. And when it does, everything changes. Not everyone will understand what you carry. Not everyone is meant to. The fire inside you is not of this world. It is sacred, ancient, divine. Some will fear it. Others will try to control it. And many will attempt to extinguish it. But here is what no one ever told you loudly enough. You were never meant to be understood by this world because you were never made for this world. You weren't placed in this world by chance. You were sent here with purpose. The spiritual warfare you endured, the betrayals that nearly shattered your heart, the loneliness that made you question your very existence, none of it was accidental. It was confirmation. Long before you recognized your own light, darkness did. That's why the attacks came early. That's why the ones you trusted became weapons. That's why you were excluded, dismissed, misunderstood, and ignored. But in the divine plan, delay isn't denial, and solitude, that's not punishment. It's sacred preparation. Every wound etched into your spirit holds divine intention. Every time someone misjudged you, it was woven into the timeline of your unveiling. Each obstacle, each rejection, every silent tear was secretly nurturing the soil from which your destiny would rise. You see, when someone targets a chosen one, they rarely understand the level of divine protection they're trespassing against. They believe they're harming a person, but in reality, they're walking into sacred territory, watched over by the Most High. You're more than a soul on a mission. You are a key unlocking generational healing. A bridge between realms, a voice encoded with spiritual frequencies meant to awaken others. You are the disruption to inherited pain, fear, and shame. And for that reason, you will walk through flames but never be consumed. You will be thrown into pits only to emerge like Joseph, crowned by destiny. You will face betrayal, just as Jesus did, but rise again, more powerful than ever. This is why your path was never smooth. Not because you were weak, but because you were handpicked to walk a road few could survive. And let this be said without hesitation. The ones who tried to break you never stood a chance because you can't destroy what you didn't design. They couldn't touch what divine hands have shielded. They had no access to what's been spiritually encoded. Let them whisper. Let them scoff. Let them pretend you were never meant for greatness. Because they weren't just opposing a person, they stood against the power that sent you. And no one stands against divine authority without consequences. So now the question is yours to answer. Will you keep shrinking to fit into rooms that are intimidated by your brilliance? Or will you rise into the warrior you were always destined to become? No more second-guessing. No more apologizing for your purpose. No more dimming your flame to comfort those still afraid of their own. Stand tall. Speak your truth with conviction. Move forward, even if your voice trembles and your legs are shaking because the world is waiting on what you carry. Darkness dreads it. And that fire inside of you, it wasn't meant to flicker. It was meant to burn through every lie spoken over your life. To those who tried to silence your spirit, they're about to realize just how wrong they were. This isn't just a comeback, it's a crowning. While they hurled stones in the dark, you were quietly building a throne of resilience. Now rise not as a victim, but as a living signal, a symbol that chosen souls cannot be destroyed. A reminder that divine favor still rests on selected hearts. And no weapon formed against you will ever succeed. If these words hit your spirit, like truth you've been waiting to hear, this isn't just a message. This is your confirmation, your wake-up call. If your soul whispered finally, then this is your sign. Drop a 111 in the comments, not as a trend, but as a declaration. I am chosen. I am covered. I am ascending. No betrayal, no attack, no lie can undo what heaven has already ordained. Your time is no longer ahead of you, it is now. Step into it.